Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Got a great topic today. How do you leverage LinkedIn from an advertising standpoint? They're doing a great job with video. I'm having super success with video. Pulse, they kind of messed up with a little bit and not allowing everybody to be aware of every time your Pulse post goes out. But their advertising model is evolving, and we've got an agency guy today who's going to share his story about how he's been able to help companies really get the word out to the exact right person and really be able to get them to convert. I know all the rage has been about Facebook and Instagram, and I get it, but I think that's marketing gone wrong in some cases. Yes, you get people to convert, but they're looking for your content and not your product, and it's kind of out of context. They're not on Facebook looking for a solution to a business problem. They're on Facebook to catch up with the kids and their friends and everything. And when you take people out of context, that they're not in that right mood and that right mindset. Yeah, they may click, they may get curious, but on LinkedIn, it's a work site, it's a business-to-business site. People are on LinkedIn to network and learn about how to solve business problems. So it's a much better match. And we're going to talk about, is it too expensive? But effectiveness is really the thing that we're after. Speaking of which, I released the course, Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting, where I leverage, one of the things is LinkedIn and an outbound cold strategy that's warm, effective, with zero rejection. Now, the course is now in production and the price is going up February 1st. So if you have sales development reps or internal marketing people that want to build a new channel, an effective channel on email, phone, social, this is the course for you. I show you from a scientifically proven way to do it and be effective. Also, if you're building out presentations for a sales kickoff or for the rest of the year, make sure you're checking out Prezi.com. Prezi.com is the way to do it. It's so simple. I built my course in Prezi. It was just infinitely better and simple. Let's get into the interview and I'll sum it up at the end. Hey, AJ, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Brian. I appreciate you having me out here on the show. So I've been doing digital marketing for probably the last 10 years or more, and really fell in love with LinkedIn advertising here about 5 years ago, and started my own LinkedIn ads agency about I guess it was in 2014, so about 4 years ago. And me personally, I live with my wife and 4 kids in the state of Utah in the United States. And I'm a ginger, I'm a triathlete, and I love cars, and I have this like high-speed go-kart. Anyway, I'm just a giant man-child, I think.
Yeah, that's all that in a nutshell there.
That's it.
Hey, so you're kind of unusual in that, everyone's been focusing on Facebook and now Instagram. I've had my issues with that approach. People go, oh, but they convert. Yeah, but it's kind of out of context, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, what I've found is if I can run the same offer to the same audiences across either Facebook or LinkedIn, I find that I have higher conversion rates on LinkedIn. And what that tells me is I'm getting the message to them in the right context. When you're on LinkedIn, you're either thinking about your work or your career. And so you're going to have a higher conversion rate because you're reaching people the way that they're ready to receive it. Although I will say that in the past, Facebook ads have been so incredibly cheap, and Instagram as well, that you can put a message out of context and still have success if you hammer hard enough. But right now we're seeing quarter over quarter, Facebook is seeing triple-digit percentage increases in their costs. Yeah. So pretty soon, I think we're going to see where Facebook catches up and it's no longer a good deal.
Yeah, I think you're right because, I started with pay-per-click ads back in probably 2002 on AdWords. And I had owned a little local business, and I was able to get ads for like 15 cents click-through. Right?
Oh,
and today's
the glory days.
Yeah, $15 is probably what it is today. LinkedIn is really not that well understood now, is it?
No, in fact, I think because of the cost, it's been maybe just ignored. When I very first heard about it back in, I guess it's been 2011, my first thought was, well, it must not be very good if I've never heard of it. And then when I jumped into it, the minimum click cost was $2. What we're seeing right now is an average between about $6 and $9 per click. And so it's expensive. And what that means is if you, as a new practitioner, if you put your neck on the line and say to your boss, I want to test out this new channel, and then you make any mistake, that mistake is going to be magnified by the fact that a missed click is an expensive proposition there. So yeah, I think it's been ignored for a long time, but I'm seeing a lot more interest around it recently, which is fantastic.
And who does it really match? Obviously, probably B2B, right? And high cost products, not like low end consumer products. Is that true? Or
Yes, very true. In fact, we've found 3 verticals that tend to work really well. The first is going to be high value business to business products and services. So just what you said. What we've decided is, if you're going to make $15,000 or more from a deal that you close, then LinkedIn ads is the perfect place to be advertising. If it's much less than that, then there are some who have success and some that don't. But if you're over that, absolutely take the dive. The second vertical that we might not expect would be higher education. So let's say an MBA or a doctoral program looking to recruit candidates. There's some great targeting that you can do around education. And then the third probably makes a little bit more sense. It's recruiting. It's usually white collar recruiting. Put an ad in front of someone that says, hey, we're interested in you as a candidate, apply. Those tend to work really, really well on LinkedIn as well. So tech companies that are recruiting in mass can bring in a lot of resumes at a really cheap price.
Yeah, because I deal mostly with, technology companies, and what I see them doing is putting, these ads on Facebook that are really, I just feel like, hey, I'm not on here to learn about, SaaS. I'm on here to, see what my nephews are up to and my family members. Now, does LinkedIn have as much granularity as Facebook, or?
On the B2C side, absolutely not. Facebook kills it. But on the B2B side, LinkedIn wins every single time. The targeting that we can get is so incredibly granular. You can target by job titles, individual skills that people have put in their profile, or groups that they're members of. You can do company name, company size, company industry. You can upload email lists just like you can on Facebook or AdWords now, and match just those. So your targeting is pretty much endless for B2B. I have not yet had a potential client come to me and say, we want to advertise on LinkedIn. And I go, oh, we don't actually have a way to reach your prospect. It's fantastic. Whereas on Facebook, if you try to target B2B, sometimes job titles match, sometimes they don't. And that's pretty much all you have.
Right. And, if you don't have their personal email address, it's probably not that valuable on something like Facebook. I don't think anyone would enter their business email on Facebook because they change jobs.
That's exactly right. We get when we upload B2B email addresses into Facebook, we see 5 to 15% match rates. Whereas if you do the same thing on LinkedIn, either business or personal, you're going to see much higher match rates. Probably, I haven't seen anything lower than like 40, 45%.
And what is the process you take people through? How do you qualify and disqualify a person that says, LinkedIn is the right advertising approach, as opposed to just trying to do the organic stuff, which is diminishing in its value exponentially because everyone's doing it?
Yeah, I think there are 3 qualifications that I tell people. Like, number 1, do you have a prospect that you can identify by who they are professionally? So if you know their job title, if you know the seniority or what department they sit in, if you know those things, then number 1, LinkedIn's going to be great because there's no other way to scalably reach that person, most likely. The second is, are they going to make enough off of that deal? I mean, if you're going to pay $6 to $9 a click in the beginning, that means that on the back end, you've got to have a big enough deal size to compensate and still make it profitable. So make sure that you have this upside of 15K or more. And then the third is, do you have the budget? Because if you're only going to put, let's say, $1,000 to $2,000 into a campaign, chances are you're going to have really small data sample sizes, and you're not going to know whether or not it's been successful. So I tell people, at least in the first month, dedicate somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 to advertising. And if you can't do that, I would not suggest LinkedIn ads yet.
And what should they advertise? Is it content? Is it an offer? What do you see really working?
Yeah, so you come from the world of search, so you understand very well that when someone is searching for something and you give them what they're searching for, you can send them right to the bottom of the funnel. If they're looking for, I want a new interview software or something like that. You can send them to a page that says hop on the phone and talk to one of our sales reps. But in social, we don't really get to do that because we're showing people ads at times when they're not expecting and not actively searching for something. So the best thing that we can do to get people's attention when they're not currently looking for us is provide something of value. So just like you said with, are we providing content? Absolutely. LinkedIn is the best place to provide gated content to very targeted prospects. So things like guides, white papers, cheat sheets, ebooks, free webinars, all those things that you say, here's something of a lot of value, and in exchange, all we're asking for is your email address. That's going to perform very well.
And does LinkedIn have that ability that I see on like Instagram, where it's like if you click through, you then can send your contact information instead of having to enter it?
Yeah, they do have that. They call those lead gen form ads, and they're not super what I would call polished. They're not nearly as polished as Facebook or Instagram or even Twitter was back before they discontinued it. But the feature is there.
Cool. This is sounding pretty good. So, I mean, who's your ideal client?
Oh, I think if you fit anywhere in those three verticals that I talked about, B2B, high value, higher education, or white collar recruiting, anyone who advertises well on LinkedIn is going to advertise well with us. We just know all the tricks to get costs down and get efficiency up.
And how did you learn this?
By spending hundreds
someone else's money or yours.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, we've cumulative, we've spent over $100 million in advertising. We've managed hundreds of accounts, and because of that, we've just seen a little bit of everything. And so, any client that we get now is inherently going to get a better service than a client that we had 2 years ago, just because we've learned a heck of a lot since.
Yeah, because I mean, I had been at like 3 different software startups before I started the podcast, and at each one, I would literally convince the CEO or the VP of sales or even the VP of marketing to let me run their pay-per-click thing because I knew Google AdWords infinitely better than anyone in marketing. And I could literally spend a half hour a day on it. And when people ask, like, really, do I need to outsource this or contract someone to do it? You do. Because I always said you needed 2 things. You needed somebody who cared and somebody who knew what they were doing. And you can't learn this stuff very quickly. And if you don't care, like it's not your money or your job, because I was at a startup where they would use a word like security. They would try and buy the word security. And like, we're a startup. We're not going to buy the word security. It's going to be very specific. And it's going to be, in these geographies, at these times a day, and at this profile of the person. And people just got overwhelmed. Because it is, no matter, I think that as the power of these things goes up, so does the requirement for talent.
Oh, you're so right. And I'm incredibly impressed by the fact that you were such a self-starter. You knew AdWords better than the marketing team.
Well, it was my money, right?
It's true.
And I had this like local little B2C business, and I was spending $1,000 to $2,000 a month, and it was a lot of money at that time. It was the whole marketing budget of the company. And I was checking it 2-3 times a day, honing it down, and we were able to just blow it up and always be number 1 on the list. And doing that in Google, because when people are searching, they're interested, as opposed to, the passive being into the LinkedIn stream. And is that where the ads show up? Is that the only place?
Well, there are 3 different places that your ads can show up. If you just go open a LinkedIn ads account right now, there are 3 options you're going to have. The first is what you're talking about right there in the news stream. If you either open up the LinkedIn app right now on your phone or go to the LinkedIn homepage in your computer browser, the second item in that news feed is going to say promoted, and that's what we call sponsored content. And this is 95% of the time, this is the ad unit I recommend everyone start with. It's the Halo ad unit. It tends to work the best in every situation. But then over to the right rail, if you're on computer, these don't show up on mobile, is every once in a while when you refresh the page, you won't see one, but usually you will. It's a set of 3 text ads. And what's so interesting about these is, first of all, they only show up on desktop. So you know that all of your traffic is not coming on a mobile device, and so you don't have to necessarily worry about your mobile landing page experience. But also that these ads are so unnoticeable. I mean, they've been around since 2008, and I think people are banner blind to them.
Yeah.
So a 0.025% click-through rate is average. And just to put that in perspective, that's 2.5 people clicking out of every 10,000 times the ad is shown. So we're talking about you needing really big audiences to drive any meaningful traffic. So if you want to be laser targeted, sniper rifle instead of shotgun kind of approach, text ads are probably not going to work very well. But if you're saying, yeah, we want to show our ads to everyone with a C-level title in the entire United States, yeah, you can probably spend some money there. And the third one I'll tell you about real quick is sponsored in-mail. This one's newer. This is where you can send somewhat personalized in-mails right into people's basically LinkedIn email box. And the cool part about this ad unit is once you send it to that candidate or that member, they're ineligible to see another one of these types of ads for 60 days. So you really own them. The other interesting part is that you're spending it's a cost per send, not a cost per click like the other ad units are. So you need to make sure that your offer is really attractive. Otherwise, you'll pay to send one of these things and no guarantee that someone's going to click on it, let alone see that they got it.
Yeah, because I've gotten a couple of those, and they're a little intrusive, and you're like a little creepy almost.
Exactly.
Have you had success with them, or?
Yeah, extreme successes in a few cases. But like I said, it has to be a really attractive offer. So if you got something that was like, hey, Brian, because you are who you are, we want to give you a free access to this tool. We just want to hear what you think. Or, we really value your opinion. Or there's a local event going on in your area. And if you don't write this down in your calendar right now, you're going to miss it. And you kind of stoke their FOMO, their fear of missing out a little bit. Those types of offers tend to work really well. But if you're doing what would actually be better for sponsored content, which is here's a valuable white paper, here's a cheat sheet, a free webinar. If you do those things through InMail, it is going to feel really intrusive and it's just going to be an utter failure.
And how do you get your clients?
We tried advertising for a little while. It was like around this time of last year,
yeah.
I was like, we really should be eating our own dog food. And so we started advertising across all the channels because that's my background is, all these different paid channels. And we shut it off because I couldn't handle the leads. We're the only ad agency in the world who specializes in LinkedIn ads. So we tend to get pretty good word of mouth and referral traffic. So we've been really blessed that way.
And so how do they find out? Is it word of mouth or is it, is your brand connected to any of these ads or?
Our brand isn't connected to the ads. We do have on our website, some of the brands that we've worked with. So that might help if people find us. But I started out my career as an SEO. So we rank pretty high for LinkedIn ads terms. I've written a lot of content, done a lot of webinars and YouTube videos, coming on podcasts like yours, kind of get the word of mouth out there. So that's pretty much how we do it.
And has LinkedIn connected this to any of their influencers? Not maybe, the Russell, not the super, movie star influencers, but kind of people who have huge followings. Is there any talk of that?
No, and that's a really good thought. They've kept the influencer program completely separate from advertising. It'd be really cool if you could say, anyone who follows Barack Obama, I want to show them ads, or anyone who follows Mark Cuban, I want to show them ads. But they haven't given us that availability yet. We can target by followers of any company page that we own, and we can target by a list of email addresses that you could export from your own LinkedIn profile if you wanted. But yeah, that would be a wish to have, further down the road.
Yeah, because when you look at like Instagram, certainly there are a lot of younger people on the consumer side trying to become influencers, wearing jewelry or clothing, and and there are companies, agencies above them, that become the intermediary between them and the brand. Have you thought of approaching that?
I have actually. I have a good friend who he started an influencer agency that went on to sell to Disney, and the very first conversation we had was him going, "Well, hey, how can we replicate this over LinkedIn?" And I didn't find a good way to do that. Influencer marketing on LinkedIn tends to be a little bit weaker. I think if you go and offer a check to a 16-year-old who's having a runaway success, they're going to be like, "Well, this is the first time a brand has ever paid attention to me." Of course, but when you start talking about offering to a VP of Salesforce, they're like, well, I don't need money. I'm doing okay over here. It's time that I need. So I don't know how well influencing is going to work on LinkedIn, but I hope someone figures it out.
Yeah, so do I, because I'm on it all day long. I share content, videos at least once a day, a post at least once or twice a week, and you see the audience numbers go up, and you're like, although it's a niche audience, it's still a pretty focused and powerful one. Same with the podcast. There's just different channels, and it's always weird to find somebody says, "Oh, you're on LinkedIn," or "Oh, you've got a podcast." It's like, okay, it's only been 8 years.
It's true. It's something that seems like an overnight success to someone from the outside. From the inside, they're going, "We worked for 8 years on this."
Yeah. So who owns this problem within your customer base? I mean, what's their title?
It's generally someone who's a director of marketing or a manager or director of digital marketing. A lot of times we'll talk to the VP of marketing or the CMO, but mostly it's a lower level channel manager.
And how long, what is the obstacle that you face in your business? I mean, do they come already convinced that LinkedIn is the right place, or are they just kicking tires, or?
Yeah, they find us because they know that they want to advertise on LinkedIn. I think the biggest challenge for us is, just like we talked about earlier, we have all these people who are digital marketers who came from the search side who want to just throw up an ad that says, "Here, talk to our sales guy and become a marketing qualified lead." And no one wants to click on that ad. Yeah. And so we have to kind of convince them of, hey, before you can approach LinkedIn, you really need to have a content strategy and more of a nurture white glove approach. And that's probably the biggest thing. We turn a lot of clients away because they just don't have content yet.
Yeah, I would think so. And have they already tried it themselves and it kind of stumbled, or they just don't have the expertise and they just want to outsource it?
Yeah, I'd say about half the time they've come to us and they've said, we tried it ourselves, but we realized we did a lot of stuff wrong and it was a failure. We'd like someone to do it. And we have probably the other half come to us and they say, we don't want to, we want to have someone else do it.
Yeah, I think especially with those prices, you don't want to make many mistakes.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, if I was in a marketing team, I wouldn't want that burden. I just spent $3,000 and we didn't get anything. Right?
Yeah, no one wants to go to your boss and say, "Hey, I'm really good at what I do, but this was an utter failure and it makes me look bad."
Yeah. So where do you see it going with LinkedIn? I mean, how do you build this business up?
Well, we're a small company. We're at like 6 employees, and I don't anticipate us getting any bigger. So just the current size of the market, we can support ourselves quite well on what is already here. But in the future, what I see coming, that Microsoft bought LinkedIn here last year, and that was a really big move. If you know anything about the Bing ads team, they are incredibly savvy and they're fast moving because they've had to compete with Google and try to play catch up. And Google has by far the most sophisticated ad platform out there. So what I imagine is going to happen is that in the future, and I give it 2-3 years because these are 2 slow-moving companies, but I think in Bing ads, we're going to be able to say, I want to bid on these keywords and show these ads if someone fits this audience. And on LinkedIn, we're going to be able to say, if they fit this audience, and if they've typed any of these keywords, show them these ads. So we're going to get a little bit of a crossover between that showing demand right now and is the audience qualified.
And, because LinkedIn is clearly connected to some of the retargeting services. Do you work with them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn has their own native retargeting that we use, but it's not nearly as good as Facebook or AdWords. So their display inventory is attached to the exchanges. So if you went and got your retargeting set up through Google AdWords, for instance, your ads could be shown to people on LinkedIn for probably a very discounted rate.
And have you done any work or any research into the companies that are focusing on, in-market intent? Have you investigated the Bombora or this Lead Funnel or Lead File up in Nova Scotia? Have you checked those companies out?
Yeah, I have checked into them a little bit. Their data sources are interesting to me. Their data sources are not as up to date as LinkedIn's own data sources, but it is, able to showcase intent versus just the pure audience. So it's something that I would recommend for really high budgets. Like if you're running enterprise level spend on, in B2B, absolutely check those out. For smaller spends, I don't think it's quite worth it. I would probably just run just the native targeting.
And who's your ideal client as far as a budget? Is it, $10K a month? Is it, more than that? I have no idea.
Yeah, we really run the gamut. I mean, our minimum is basically $1,000 a month. If you'll pay us $1,000 a month, I don't care how much you spend. But we run many of LinkedIn's largest customers, up into the hundreds of thousands per month. So, an ideal for us is honestly a larger client, but we'll service anyone. We just want to help everyone get a leg up into LinkedIn ads because it's really difficult to do alone.
Yeah, and why don't you want to get bigger?
Well, I come from corporate, and I just this might sound really stupid, but I just hated the meetings to plan meetings. I'd have a whole day that was just back-to-back meetings, and I got to the end of the day and went, I got nothing done. Yeah. So I want to stay as far away from corporate because I really like my entrepreneurial lifestyle right now. But who knows? I mean, if demand's there, of course I'm going to grow the team. But I think 6 is great because I already know everything that's going on in the company, and plus, I'm not having to hire anyone ancillary who isn't creating additional revenue. If I have to hire an IT person or an accountant, I think I'd cry paying that salary and not seeing a return on it.
And do you see any kind of AI being applied to LinkedIn ads? Any companies out there, either coming up with stuff, or LinkedIn themselves, or Microsoft?
That's a really good question. I don't necessarily see AI playing a role. I do see that LinkedIn has this wealth of data. First of all, they know everything about who you are professionally, but then they're also getting a good understanding of what you're reading and who you're talking to, who you're networked with. And so I think they can get better targeting around not only like who you are professionally, but your behavioral stuff. So I think we'll see that. And I don't think how much of that would be AI. It's probably more of like machine learning, but I do see it playing a role. LinkedIn just as a platform has been behind on technology for basically since its inception. Yeah. So I think we're going to see things come out of Google and Facebook first, and then LinkedIn and Twitter will probably try to play catch up and follow what's successful.
And in your client base, are they adopting AI as far as like finding lookalike accounts, doing account-based marketing, really, fine-tuning their exact, client profile, not just the person that makes the final decision, but the person who actually starts looking for their product?
Yeah. So 8 months ago, LinkedIn came out with a new feature, which was basically being able to upload a list of companies to target, or a list of email addresses, or retarget. And so because you have this ability now to target company names en masse, that really opened up the floodgates for account-based marketing, which has been fantastic. So we do have clients. Oh, and by the way, when they did this, they took your minimum audience size that you could advertise to from a minimum of 1,000 down to 300. So now we have the ability to target, if you want to go after just IBM, for instance, as long as you've got 300 people you could potentially show the ad to, you can run that ad just to people at IBM, for instance. So yeah, lots of people bringing their own data and leveraging it, especially because data that you bring usually results in a lower cost per click than using LinkedIn's native targeting.
And, I live on LinkedIn, and so I've got the sense there's a lot of salespeople on LinkedIn, some marketing people, some leadership, lots of consultants. Who are you finding on there? Where when a company comes to you and they sell to who within that enterprise would be, definitely a great match for you or LinkedIn? Well,
when the client comes to us and they say, hey, the person who buys from us is the CIO or the CTO or the CEO, we go, great, we can definitely reach that person. And what we find, most people I think assume that C-level folks at large tech companies, they're busy and they don't have time to be clicking on ads. But I would say otherwise. I mean, every time we run ads to these folks, we get meaningful clicks. And the nice thing is, if you have an audience that you don't believe is on LinkedIn, you only pay when someone clicks. So go ahead and launch the campaign to test. And if no one clicks, you don't pay anything.
Yeah, because you got to think, how else can you reach them? You're probably not going to find them on Facebook. You're not going to find them on Instagram, especially if they're over 45.
Yeah.
And definitely not Snapchat, So.
Yep. And I think those folks are on Facebook, but it's sure hard to find them.
Right.
People are not putting their job titles into their personal Facebook profile, but LinkedIn has had it since they created an account, So don't try to interrupt them while they're trying to look at pictures of their grandkids.
Right.
Hit them instead when they're thinking about work.
Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. How do people learn more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, if you go to our company website, B2Linked, that's the letter B, the number 2, and then the word linked.com, you can fill out the contact form at the bottom of the website. And don't worry, no salesperson is going to follow up with you. You won't be put into a marketing automation workflow. You'll get right into my inbox, and I refuse to sell. So ask me any question you want. Also, if you want to try giving LinkedIn ads a shot yourself for your company, if you go to b2linked.com/checklist, it's the same checklist we run all of our new clients our onboards through, and you can follow the same checklist that we do to get someone up and running.
I hope you like that. It may be a more effective way for your business, depending on who you want to get to convert. And today we have a very different paradox. Before we didn't know who our customers were. Today, or who will they be? Today we do. And we can go out and find them. And that's why I started this course. It's like start the conversation, get the meeting. Because now we can find the people. The problem is they don't want to be found. And what I do is find or share with you a scientifically proven way of getting them to convert. Basically starting a conversation with you as a human being and not as a robot or a conversion. So please check out the course. It runs for 6 months. Not that you need that much time. You could, do the course in a weekend. But what the 6 months is for is what I call office hours. So I'm going to have office hours twice a month. It's going to be an hour-long thing where you can ask questions, give feedback, share your approach and how it's working. And I can give you advice and direction and share other things that I'm doing, new technology. And the course is living. What I mean by living is, yes, you take it, but I'm going to be adding modules pretty much weekly. So it's going to be something that you can go back to as a reference point, and you'll be able to see what's working for other people. So check that out. Also, check out nudge.ai. They're doing a lot of blogging on how relationships play into sales, because the spamming and the hustle and grind of cold calling is just driving people nuts and is no longer working. You may know that. You may have felt that. And that we've been working together, and I've been a huge Nudge fan for years. Because the way to start conversations is all going to be based off commonality and relationships. And Nudge shows you the strength of the relationships at every level of the account. And Nudge Team allows you to use your whole ecosystem as a way of getting into these accounts. So nudge.ai, check out their blog. I'll be sharing it on LinkedIn. Make sure you're connecting up with me on LinkedIn. The link to the course is in the notes. It's also on my LinkedIn profile, and it's also on YouTube channel, Maverick Method, all one word, on YouTube. It is the video when you go visit the channel. So check it out and let me know if there's a topic or a guest you'd like to have on the show. Looking forward to it, and thanks for listening.